Hey everyone, welcome to Eco Nomads, where we explore different ways in which humanity can live again in harmony with nature. Today I want to tell you why I went to Africa and what I discovered there. This is very unusual for me to do a spontaneous video like this, just sitting here and talking to you without editing, just one take. Usually, if you know this channel, if you've seen other videos, I create very polished content and it can take a lot of time. For example, the video I created called "The Most Resilient Agriculture on Earth" took 5 months to create. And just standing in front of the camera and speaking was a huge challenge for me. Even when I was doing many takes and then choosing just the perfect ones. Because English is not my first language. But I realized that I was hiding behind polished content and I wasn't allowing myself to just express myself in the way that I like to, that I enjoy. And if I'm truly honest, it was out of fear of how people may perceive me and how I come across, and needing to control, every take, every sentence to make sure that I have my pronunciation perfect, that I don't make any small mistake. And I just realized that I was just hiding. But recently I realized that what I'm currently doing, I feel like it's so important that it makes no sense to take so many months to create each video, because I'm losing a lot of time and sometimes not conveying the messages that need to be conveyed. So today I'm taking a risk, I'm taking a chance, and I thought, okay, maybe I need to practice and I need to speak to a camera for 30 minutes each day to gain the confidence. That's what some teachers, people who teach you how to speak to an audience or to a camera, that's what they say, you have to practice. So I thought, let me do that so I can gain the momentum for that. But I never got around to that. But now I feel like it's time to just do it, because we are in the midst of a very interesting project which I'm going to tell you about. And it's what I discovered going to Africa. So why did I go to Africa? Well, this whole channel is about my journey exploring how humanity can live again in harmony with nature. And I've explored mostly topics about agriculture, food, ecology, and how they all combine. And it came through my feeling and my vision, which is of course not just mine, of how in modern society all the lands are so segregated. We have land for agriculture, we have land which is nature reserve, and then we have cities and places where people live. And in modern countries, the so-called developed countries, this segregation is very well defined and very hard to breach. In many places, if you have an agricultural land, you're not even allowed to live there. So I was just seeing how twisted it all is, that we segregated all these places and then we created cities and places where people live, but they are so disconnected from nature, from where their food is coming from. And seeing how, if we really want to create a more beautiful world, that we need to change that as a society. We need to create places where people live independently and interdependently as communities, places which are both villages and nature reserves and agricultural lands. It all needs to combine into one. So after I studied ecology in the university, I thought, okay, let me maybe find a job and see which jobs are available. And every single job that I discovered never really matched my vision, because I guess that there is no money to be made there so much. Or maybe there is, but I couldn't find it. Everything I had, in some way or another, it was supporting the way things are and not really trying to change anything to create a better society and happier people. So I just said, let's try to find a way by myself to explore these ideas and share them with the world. So after some incubation, I got a camera and I started documenting, and that was a year and 8 months ago. And you can see all the films in this channel. And then I said, I had the intuition that maybe in Africa things are a little different, because it's so-called undeveloped compared to the Western countries. Then I thought maybe this segregation between the different kinds of lands is not so present there, and maybe there is a lot to learn there of how people live in simplicity, in harmony with nature. And I was hoping even to find people who live completely off-grid, not because they broke out of the matrix and bought a farm somewhere, but because they have never been connected to the grid. So that was my intuition to go to Africa, that I might find interesting things there in these regards. And surely enough, I did. I started speaking with different people in the ecology field, and I was started to meet people, to find people who are in Kenya, and they invited me, and I started to connect to different people. And then when I arrived to Kenya, I had a list of people and places that I could meet and visit. And one of those people is a young woman called Priscilla. And she heard about me and she saw the videos on this channel. And so we connected, and she invited me to the village. And I said, sure. So I had no idea what to expect. She just told me, I'm from the Samburu tribe. Come to our village. So I did. She told me the place of the name of the nearest town. So I went there, not really knowing what to expect. And basically, the nearest town to her village is 1 hour away on motorbikes on a small trail through the Savannah in middle to northern Kenya. So we met at this small town called Rumruti, and we had 2 motorbikes waiting for us with drivers from her family, and we went on motorbikes for 1 hour on a trail through the Savannah. It was not easy because I was carrying like 3 bags and some food and stuff. So it was really a challenge because I had to hold myself on this motorbike as we were bumping our way through the trail on the savannah. And then we arrived at this village, and the first thing that I asked is, where is the village? Because when you arrive, you don't see anybody. You just see grassland, vast expanse of grassland until the horizon, and then you see a manyatta. A manyatta is a small piece of land where one family lives. It's usually 1, 2, or 3 little earth homes made out of mud and branches, and it's surrounded by a improvised fence of this very thorny bush that they gather from around. They take this thorny bush and they place it around. Of course, you need many bushes like that, branches from this bush, and you surround the manyattas. And these manyattas are spaced out a few hundreds of meters apart, sometimes a kilometer apart. So if you live in one manyatta, your neighbor is a few minutes walk away, and in between it's just the savannah, completely wide, where lions, hyenas, giraffes, zebras, anything you can imagine, they just roam freely there. So that was the first thing that really caught my eye, seeing that, and they live completely off-grid. They are not connected to electricity, to water, sewage, nothing. Sometimes there is a little bit of reception from a faraway tower, so you can get a little bit of 4G signal, but other than that, there is no connection to the grid. And that's the first thing that really caught my eye. That's really, I would say, special about this place. The second thing is their diet. So these people are, should I say, they have been pure pastoralists for as long as they can remember. That means their diet has been based on their livestock completely. So meat, milk, and blood. That's their diet. And some wild herbs that they use to make medicinal stews and soups. And that's it. No other plants, so that means no agriculture. Just their livestock. They never plowed these lands, never grew any plants for food, just relied on their livestock. And that means that even furthermore, this land is not segregated. It's completely wild because they never plowed it. They never really meddled with it. And that was very, very unique to see, because you see people living in nature, but in a nature that they haven't altered in any significant way, except for the alteration of growing their livestock, which is an alteration, and we'll talk about it. So this is how they lived for thousands of years, probably, according to what they say. And recently, everything has been changing because of changing weather patterns, changing rain patterns. And imagine that if your entire livelihood depends on livestock, well, the livestock depends on grass, and the grass depends on rain. So if there's no rain, there's no grass, and then the animals start to die, which is what has been happening, especially in the past 10 years, and especially in the last 3 to 4 years. In 2022, there was a drought. For a year and a half, there was no rain. And usually in this environment, it rains there are 2 rainy seasons every year. So to have a year and a half without a single drop of rain, you can imagine how shocking it was for them. And the grass turned brown, and then the only thing left for them, for the animals to eat, is the trees. That's the only green thing in the horizon. So some people started cutting those trees that are there, and this was a forest savanna, like part forest, part savanna, a savanna with many patches of forest, of many trees. And people started cutting, and then what we see is the cycle of degradation, right? Because once you start cutting the trees, then you're really losing a lot of living biomass, and those trees are creating microclimates, and they are holding the soil together. They're giving sustenance to the microorganisms in the soil and to animals that use these trees for shade and for nesting. So once you start removing the trees on a large scale, you're really going towards ecological degradation. And what we see in other places is that once you start it in such a scale, then what you see is the cycle of degradation, where each step is leading to further degradation. And eventually places like a forest savanna turning into deserts. And we have evidence that this has been going on in many places around the world. And we can see that this is to a large extent, a result of human activity in this place. Because we know that just 30 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, it was a forest savanna with many trees and different species of trees. And now we can see the change. There are still a few trees, the survivors, the older trees, which are there. But most of the young trees could not survive the drought and the cutting. And so then Priscilla comes in, and she grew up in this village. And usually girls don't get education, but her parents were rather progressive, and they said, okay, you can go out and study what you want, and they can get some money from selling a few goats or a cow, which are worth quite some money. So by selling a few, they can get a degree or something. So she went out and she studied permaculture, and then became a certified permaculture trainer. Then went out throughout Kenya and other countries teaching. She started teaching these women groups and empowering them individually also to break free from abusive marital structures, which can get quite abusive sometimes in some societies in Kenya. So she's empowering them and teaching them how to grow vegetables and revive the soil. And then after a few years, she realized that she needs to go back home, seeing what's happening in her home village, which is named Nikki Lois, by the way. She said, I have to go back and do something. And so she says, these older trees that have survived in this landscape, let us collect those seeds from those trees and start a big nursery and start reforesting this land, this vast landscape. And so she receives 6 acres. She receives 6 acres from the community, and she starts this center, the Pastoralist Savannah Restoration Center. She begins gathering the women. These women join, and they start doing really good things like digging ponds and creating earth structures that can hold the rainwater and help it sink into the soil, sprouting trees, planting them, planting many different species of trees, creating a tin roof and bringing in some tanks so that they can collect the rainwater, so that can be used also for sprouting the trees and for drinking. And what happened is that a herd of elephants started to come, and they're roaming around, and because the environment is degrading, these elephants are looking for sustenance. They're in need of water and food, and their environment has been shrinking and degrading. So they raid the site every once in a while, which has created a huge strain on them, on Priscilla and her family and the other women there. They come and uproot the trees that have been planting, break pretty much any structure that they can to look for food and water, break the tanks used to collect the water so that they can drink from there. And so this situation is very interesting, and that's where I found myself. She's telling me, okay, this is what's happening. Right now we can't build the nursery because every time we start building it, they come and demolish it. And the trees we've been planting, they've uprooted. And this very unique situation where part of the ecosystem, the elephants, kind of sabotage the attempt to restore the landscape. Probably unknowingly, I would say. And then how do you deal with that? What do you do to keep on planting those trees to bring back the forest cover and support the elephant population as well? Because you don't want to just demonize the elephants and make them the bad guy for needing food and water. So basically, to achieve the long-term plan of ecological restoration, we've identified 4 basic infrastructures that are necessary to turn it around and begin the cycle of restoration. These 4 basic infrastructures are a nursery, a well, a fence, and a pond. So the nursery is necessary, of course, to sprout those seeds of the old trees and begin the reforestation efforts. Then the bore well is necessary to have water on the site to be able to support and sustain the nursery. Then we will at first have to protect the nursery and the bore well from the elephants. And that can be done only, unfortunately, with a solar electric fence, because otherwise they are surely to come there and destroy it as well. Of course, that creates a lot of tension, potentially, because the elephants now, hearing and smelling the water on the other side of the fence, now even have more motivation to break into the site. So that's where the 4th infrastructure comes in, to dig a pond outside of the fence and to channel some of the water from the bore well outside for the elephants, so that now they will not even have the motive to break into the site, because they are mostly after water. And if they have a non-conflicting source of water, which is just there, they will have little to no motivation to break in, and they would probably not go near the fence and will not hurt themselves. And of course, this is a short-term solution. And what we hope to see, what we think we will see, is that once the tree cover is returning, once we see the ecological function of this grassland, of this savanna, returning to to life, then we will see the human population and the elephant population thriving, because that's what they need. They need a healthy environment, and that includes tree cover. So that's the four infrastructures that we are currently hoping to get. And we started a fundraiser 2 weeks ago to fund these projects and to begin this catalyst back towards the cycle of restoration. And another thing to consider is their very unique lifestyle of the Samburu in this village. The way that they have not been influenced so much by industrial society, and they still live in a very traditional way. We now realize that if we don't do this, if we don't create the cycle of restoration, these people could not live there for very long. And eventually they would have to abandon this village and move to the cities. And that's something which I think would be a great loss to humanity, because I feel like we have so much to learn from people, from cultures that have maintained a traditional way of life. And so we're thinking, how can we empower them to stay there and continue their heritage, but incorporate ways in which they can regenerate their lands, protect it, and live there harmoniously with the nature around them. And this will become a training center where people from all over the world can come, learn about ecological restoration, learn about the Samburu culture, and have a very unique experience. So right now I'm working with Priscilla, with her family, to do this fundraiser, so we could really set forth on this path on the long run. And right now we really need your help, because we are on the second week on the fundraiser. And really, I created a film about it. It's like 13 minutes long, and you can see it on this channel. And somehow the YouTube algorithm didn't push it forward, and it has less than 1,000 views, which is rather strange because this channel has 22,000 subscribers, and we are raising 22,000 euros. So if each subscriber gives €1, we're done. We've reached our goal. Right now there is a little bit more than 1,000 euros, and we are still optimistic about it. That's also why I'm making this video right now, to invite you to take part in this vision together with us. If that resonates with you, feel free to go to the fundraising page to see the short film if you haven't already. And I would like to know what you think about all of this. Do you have any suggestions or ideas? You can comment down below. Thank you for staying until now. I appreciate you and hope to see you again soon.